more, dear friends, we are going into the breach. Oh, you're Catholic? Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. You acted like an American, okay? Now, there's a number of different things that have to be done in this country to change the culture, which will in turn change the politics.
And the culture's a swamp. Because that is not a Catholic teaching.
Right.
And the cafeteria is closed, my friend.
Yeah. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear friends, we are going into the breach. He tells the truth, just like we do at the Frontline with Joe and Joe on Sunday nights, 8 o'clock, Facebook Live. We got a great show for you tonight because, as we always say, the left is teeing it up for us, and we're Barry Bonds standing at home plate, ready to knock their lies right to the San Francisco Bay. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Our call-in telephone number is 844-527-8723. And our live chat room, the only social media out there we're actually socializing in, is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. Please follow Joe and I on Facebook and YouTube at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. And thank you for joining us again. And we are, as always, pleased to be joined by Father Stephen Imbarrato, the protest priest. He wants to come on and mix it up at the Frontline with Joe and Joe and talk about a lot of the quite frankly, the insanity that's going on out there. So with that said, I'm going to kick it off to Joe Resinello.
Father, before we begin, could you lead us in some prayer?
Sure. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, amen. Father in heaven, in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, we ask that you send the Holy Spirit down upon us, Lord, upon our country, upon our church. For this time that we spend together, may we feel your presence. Lord, always show us your will, give us the strength to do your will, so that in some small way we can bring our country to conversion, which starts with our daily conversion, Lord. Lord, how we desire always, always, always to be cognizant of your truth, and in knowing your truth, proclaim your truth as you tell us, those who hear the word of God, and act on it are wise. Lord, allow us to be wise. And we ask this through the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary, in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Father.
I guess a good place to begin, you may or may not have seen, Joe did a video in front of the statue of Christopher Columbus in an Italian-American enclave in Newark, New Jersey. I'd be very interested to hear your views. All of us are of Italian-American descent, but also just the whole idea of trying to erase history, particularly Catholic history. We see this in St. Louis. They're trying to tear down the statues of St. Louis, as well as in California, Juniper Sierra. I'd be very interested in your comments.
Well, I'm not so sure. I mean, I guess on one hand, I'm not so sure we should be taking this personally. On the other hand, I think it's all about Catholicism. To be quite honest with you, just as Occupy Wall Street a few years ago, and now we have the whole Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and these people don't know what they're doing. From one moment to the next, they don't know what they're doing. These people are in the dark. Many of them are well-intended. There's no doubt in my mind they want to do the right thing. But when you're in the dark, you don't know what's right, what's wrong. So I personally believe that in every social attack, whether it be attacks against life, marriage, and family, the Catholic Church, which is supposed to be the bulwark of truth, the defender of life, marriage, and family, all that is moral, all that is true, is always going to be attacked sooner or later. Now, Bernard Nathanson, when he wanted to legalize abortion in this country, knew that he had to attack Catholicism and neutralize the church from the get-go. They knew that when they wanted to legitimize homosexual marriage in this country. So they sooner or later are going to get around to us Catholics. But to be quite honest with you, and if you're watching social media, they're tearing down statues of people who are defenders of their cause in the course of history. So they really don't know what they're doing. And indeed, this is just an indication of the darkness that is roaming the world, seeking the ruin of souls, right? And many, many well-intended people. I know that if I was a black person, and Joe, you guys know that I had an adopted son. God, unfortunately, took his own life coming up on 6 years ago, who is darker skinned than Obama, President Obama. So I understand this. He was bullied in school. It was unrelentless what he went through. I saw systematic racism again. So I get all of that. And there's many well-intended people, but they should be angry too because their well-intended cause has been co-opted by those who just want to perpetrate evil. And that's what they're doing. They're just going around looking for the next target. Doesn't matter whether the target makes any sense. It doesn't matter they don't understand history. They don't know history. They haven't been teaching history in the schools for decades. So this is not about revising history. This is about random violence and random attacks because they're in the dark. I mean, think about if you were in a dark room that had a lot of statues in it and sacred art and everything else, and you were trying to find your keys or whatever, you're gonna start touching the next thing. It's just, I mean, to me, that's perfectly clear. Now, we Catholics should be concerned because it's really ultimately all about the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church has always been seen as the defender of morality, defender of what is true and right. So sooner or later they're going to come after us. And indeed, we see that now, right? We see that with this Shaun King guy who is, I think, dangerous. I think dangerous. Shaun does a lot of talking, about the white Jesus, right? We need to get rid of the white Jesus and any depictions of the white Jesus. Hey, this guy is an anti-Semite and he's a Catholic bigot, So we should start, I think, speaking the truth and telling the truth exactly what's going on because these statues, they're just symbolisms of really a bigger battle between good and evil. You guys know that. I know that.
Yeah, Father, I would agree as well. And I'll tell you what, I think a lot of people, there are people of goodwill who are, I think, consciously tuning out some of the negatives, thinking that they can possibly get an advantage politically if they go for this movement. I've said this time and time again. People should not listen to my words. Read the charter of this cultural revolution. I'm going to note 3 things that it stands for. Marxism. They are trained Marxists. This is not my words. This is their words. Second, they are against the conventional family. These are their words, not mine. And third, they want to defund the police. I think, sadly, you cannot appeal to some of these people who drank the Kool-Aid politically. Sadly, my appeal is to people of goodwill, people who are basically not putting on a political hat. These ideas are dangerous. Whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, history has proven this. We have seen cultural revolutions in Cambodia. We have seen cultural revolutions in China. We have seen cultural revolutions in the former Soviet Union. All you have to do is read Alexander Solzhenitsyn's book, Gulag Archipelago, and he lays it out perfectly. This is something that transcends black and white. It's not about, if you ask me, in a sense, racial equality. It runs deeper, and many people are sincere, because I'm for racial equality. I'm with you. I'm just not for this cultural revolution. I'm glad you put it that way. I feel the same way. This is not the movement of Martin Luther King. If he was alive, I believe he would condemn it.
Oh, well, absolutely sure. Martin Luther King. I mean, you look at videos and historical tapes of Martin Luther King, and then you look at what's going on today. There's no comparison. There's no correlation. If you look at what was going on in the time of Martin Luther King, because there were riots going on in the time of Martin Luther King. I just saw some videos of the Black Panthers. They've popped up again, the new Black Panthers. They were around in the time of Martin Luther King. And there was a clear distinction between the mindset, the peaceful, prayerful protest of Martin Luther King, legitimately trying to gain civil rights for his people, and then those who are going to take advantage of that. He cracks the door open, and then other people are going to take advantage of it for their own just selfish, aimless ideology. But see, Joe, I, as a Catholic priest, always try to put it in the bigger picture, right? Light, dark, cold, warmth, good, evil, right? And truth and what's false. And, you know, this is just, this is just the last stop in a train that's been really passing us by, coming into the station for decades. It's been going on for decades. What did we think that what was been going on in this country for the last 40 years, 50 years is just going to, even if it's been below the surface, it's just going to stay there? Perfect example, and I know you guys want to talk about this today. Perfect example of how in dark these people are, who are well-intended. Many of them, maybe most of them, are well-intended. But to try and point out to these people who want racial justice that indeed your biggest problem, if you think the government of the United States is racist and that our culture is systemically racist, well, then look at the abortion industry, look at government-sanctioned, government-protected, government-funded daily mass murder of preborn children. But you talk to them about that, and all of a sudden now you're the racist, right? I've been fighting racism for as long as I've been a pro-life activist. Not only because of my son, but because in the 2 pregnancy centers that I have started, the overwhelming majority of women that I have helped have been Black. They've been women of color who have been oppressed by the system. And because they've been oppressed by the system, they get pregnant and they all of a sudden see that there's no man in their life, and they think the best recourse now is to kill their baby. And we point the light to them. We point the truth to them. We fill in, you talk about fill in the gap. We fill in the gap that is left by their vacant man, and help them. In the 25 years I've been doing pro-life activism, let's face it, the overwhelming majority of babies that I've saved from abortion have been babies of color, Black babies. And I'm the racist? See, this just goes to show how when you're dealing with evil, when you're dealing with the evil one, good is evil, evil is good. And that's what's going on now. These people are in the dark. They think they're in the light. Those who are in the light look and see and know they're in the dark. And when we want to bring them to the light is too blinding for them, right? And they can't see it. They can't focus. They can't understand it at first. We plant seeds. We hope sooner or later they happen. They see it and they come into the light with us. So
Father, I just want to clarify for some of our listeners, in case they don't know who you are. Father was a late vocation. He worked in the world. He became a priest in his 50s. He adopted children before he became a priest. So just so I just want people to be clear, when he says that he had a son before he became a priest. He's been a priest for 2 decades now. He is in good standing. He is now retired, living in New Mexico, and he is a pro-life advocate, just so people are clear.
Awesome. And you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello, joined by Father Stephen Imbarrato on the Crusade Channel. Always on air, always online at crusadechannel.com. The last live radio station standing. Our live chat room, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in, is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. Father, yesterday morning was the first Saturday procession down at Mott and Bleecker in New York City. And it was the first one in the last couple months because of the COVID-19. I went down to pray. I was praying that the crazies wouldn't be there, the pro-choice New York or whatever they call themselves. And by the grace of God, they were not there. I did a short video, and I felt compelled to do it because I did the video last week that went viral in front of the Columbus statue. But this I thought was more important, and it speaks to what you just referred to. People don't know many times. I mean, even the good Lord forgives ignorance when you just don't know. One of the sidewalk counselors down there told me that when they confront a lot of these African-American women who are going into Planned Parenthood, they have no idea who Margaret Sanger is. And what I did was just a 3-minute video, just started with the camera from my phone, camera on Planned Parenthood. I pointed out the procession, and I said, and by the way, while you're at it tearing down statues, can we please take that down? And I showed the picture of the street sign that said Margaret Sanger Square. It's like you said, Father, good has become evil, evil has become good. You're a racist if you support restrictions on abortion clinics because you want to impose real health and safety standards. You are the racist for wanting, or you're the racist that wants to abolish abortion. But those that actually like her, and Planned Parenthood, of course, who are in black neighborhoods, who are in neighborhoods with people of color, they're the so-called enlightened, noble, good people. And it's so frustrating, but the reason why I'm saying this is because just taking a video like that, putting it online, trying to tell people exactly what that organization is all about and who their founder is, it'll make them think, it'll raise their consciousness to understand, no, their community has been targeted for the last several decades. They need to realize that, don't you think?
Well, yes, they do, and we need to be the light and tell them the truth. Let me tell you guys my opinion about all of this. And I haven't heard this anywhere, and maybe people have thought it. I haven't seen it too prevalent. What's going on today with this racial justice, the reason why this has reared its ugly head in very traditional ways that we have seen for decades, not Martin Luther King, but what was going on in the 60s with the Black Panther and the riots. I mean, right? I remember them in Newark. I was up in Bergen County at the time. I was horrified. I was downright scared. I was just a kid back in those days. But here's what's going on. This is all about Blexit. This is all about Blexit. Because today, more than ever, the blacks are waking up and seeing the light and realizing that they've been on a plantation for a long, long time. And the Democrat Party that they thought was going to be their salvation, all right, were the plantation owners and the overlords. And they realized the whole idea, and it's got really nothing to do about Trump, and it's got nothing to do with Republican politics. It's got to do with individual responsibility. It's got to do with, again, the traditional family, traditional marriage, and that's where opportunity lies, right? And they're beginning to realize this. They're waking up and they're seeing what the bill of goods they've been sold by the media, by Hollywood, and of course by the Democrats, and that's why you see Candace Owens and even Kanye West. I mean, my Lord, this guy is just I love him. I never wanted to meet him before. I still don't want to go to any of his concerts. I really love the concert scene, but I want to hug this guy. I want to hug this guy. This guy has done more, I think, for our understanding of the racial divide and the truth in terms of what is really important for all of us, black, white, it doesn't matter, color, background, right? Traditional marriage, traditional family, traditional values, the sanctity of life. And I think that's what it's all about. They're getting nervous now because the traditional 8% that always voted conservative is now 4 times that, 4 or 5 times that, 30%, 40%, and they're worried, and so they have to stir that pot up prior to the election in 2020.
Father, if the African Americans vote even double what they traditionally do, the Democrats are in trouble. Forget about 4 times, which, like you said, they know it. And I mean, it's so, Joe and I say all the time on the show, Father, when you talk about, let's say, again, leaving aside those who are in darkness and let's say they are well-intentioned, I'm talking about the ones who pull their strings, the ones who try to promote all this nonsense on us, okay? Like you said, we've been trying to hammer home that blacks are starting to wake up to the enslavement that you described. I'm going to go and visit the Italian Tribune tomorrow and do an interview with the publisher who sent a letter to Governor Murphy, okay, which basically pointed out, not to get into the Columbus thing, but he basically pointed out to him, what are your values? The slums of Camden, the decrepit education system, okay? African Americans, like you said, like Candace Owens, Kanye West, and the rest of them, they're starting to say, the jig is up. The jig is up. In other words, and African Americans are going to come like every other voting bloc. There's going to be a diversity of opinion. It's not going to be monolithic, and the Democrats can't stand that. But here's the nefarious part. The Democrats will crawl across 1 million dead bodies for political victory. And that's what needs to be pointed out. That's why they need to be resisted. And that's the truth. We know that because of their treatment of unborn babies in the womb.
Well, you're absolutely right. I just pulled up on Facebook something I posted the other day, an Instagram post by Breitbart, where a gentleman fact-checked the Washington Post. The Washington Post, of course, blaming Trump for every social ill in the country. And this guy who fact-checked the Washington Post pulled up the 20 top cities in the country that for crime, for homelessness, for poverty, right? And in one instance, I forget which one, but 17 out of the 20 cities, I think top cities for crime, are Democrat strongholds. 19 out of 20 for poverty, homelessness, Democrat strongholds. If you want to just stop and take a breath for a moment, right, and open up the door to your dark room, you will see the light. I mean, it's right there in front of you. And I think that in spite of the insanity and the confusion that they're trying to create now, you see more and more people of color. And as a matter of fact, we talked about the black vote, the percentage that are now moving to conservatism. The Latinos are inherently conservative, and everybody thinks that they're going to, vote progressively. They're not going to vote progressively. They're going to vote conservatively. And the Democrat Party is, and the government does this all the time. It really bugs me a lot because everyone, it seems like when you become part of the government bureaucracy, regardless of political party, this becomes part of your mindset that every American has idiot or moron tattooed on their forehead. I mean, I love when I hear these politicians say the American people. Hey, you have no idea about the American people, right? First of all, if you think about every congressperson, I always think about AOC in New York. I think about Pelosi out in San Francisco. They represent 1/435th of our country. Think about that. 1 out of 435, 1/435th of our country, right? And they're speaking for the American people. I mean, they have no clue what the American people are all about, right? And then, of course, the Democrats are complaining that Trump is the problem. Well, look at the lifelong Democrats that have been in office for decades. Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, these career politicians, the general politicians. So they think we're morons. They think that we're idiots. But the people are waking up, and I think that is what we're seeing now is the reaction of the people, right? The generational politicians, the lifelong politicians. They're losing their grip. They're losing their grip. So, of course, it's kind of like what is the Wizard of Oz, right? Where the Wicked Witch sends out her minions, right, to get them. Oh, that's what's going on now, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work because we know Christ has conquered death. Christ is going to prevail. He will prevail, and good is going to prevail. And I'm not saying the Republican Party is good. Anyone who knows me knows that generally I have problems with politicians across the board. When I talk about abortion, I talk about government sanctioned, government protected, government funded daily mass murder of preborn children. I talk about the Republicans being the party of omission. I talk about the Democrats being the party of commission. I talk about the pro-life movement enabling the party of omission. I talk about the Catholic Church, the bishops enabling the party of commission. So we're all complicit to a certain extent. Right? We need to understand that dynamic, that paradigm for us to work our way out of this. But then in the midst comes this guy who I still to this day laugh and say, Donald Trump's really president? Donald Trump's really president? Somehow, more than anyone else, and I'm not saying that he is perfect because he's far from perfect, but I will tell you this, he's got it right more than anyone else, right? So I'm not saying he's perfect, and I'm not saying he's perfectly right, but he's got it more right than anyone else. There's nobody right now that's got it more right than him.
Father, one of the stories we're going to cover on our Crusade show this week is the breakup of the community called CHOP in Seattle. 2 young men, teenagers, were murdered there. One of which, maybe both of which were black. I know for one of which was black, and the father was very vocal about that particular zone, saying that it should have been broken up. The National Guard should have been called in. What I kind of want to touch upon, and I think this cuts across all races, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, all creeds, all religions. The data shows this, and it's very clear that criminal deviance, there is a direct correlation with broken homes and poor fathering. Sadly, the people who are talking about the defund the police and all this other nonsense, which I believe will absolutely destroy our society, will not shift money towards programs that support strong families and good fathers. In fact, they are against the conventional family. Frankly, I just don't get the disconnect because it's statistically proven. Go to any criminal justice school, John Jay in New York City, any sociologist, they say this clearly. I like your comments on it because I personally think it's the breakdown of the family that's causing a lot of this craziness, because good families that are solid, frankly, don't have children who are disenfranchised in the street, burning things down, hurting people. I'd like your comments.
Well, look, you're 98% true when you say I never use the universal all or every, all right, but it's absolutely true. Look, how much history do we have in this regard? And of course, this is controversial. 5,000 years of the Old Testament, 2,000 years of the New Testament, 7,000 years of traditional family. and we've been able to overcome every adversity. But there's still been wars. There's still been violence, right? But you're absolutely right. And really, the progressive agenda understands this, right? That it goes back to Hillary. It takes a village. They want the government, right? 1984, right? They want the government to be the sole influencer or the ultimate authority, the only authority to have any influence on anyone, right? So to do that, what is the greatest influence on a child growing up? All right, there's two great influences on children traditionally growing up. There's the family, right, and the church. Family and the church. So, of course, it makes perfect sense. They're going to try and destroy the family, and they're going to try and destroy the church, which is really the manifestation of what? Our Father in heaven, right? Our heavenly Father. So, yes, that makes perfect sense. It's been going on 50, 60 years, maybe back to the time of the roots of communism, where they wanted the government to be God, and so they knew they had to destroy the family unit. Poverty is a way of keeping the family oppressed, suppressed. Everyone who comes into the confessional, male, female, doesn't matter, who is talking about different aspects of their lives, I always ask them, tell me about your relationship, whether it's drugs, alcohol, divorce, sexual promiscuity. I always tell them, I ask them, tell me about your relationship with your father. And to a person, I rarely ever get, well, my life is a mess, but I have a great relationship with my father, right? So it absolutely goes back to father figures. It goes back to traditional marriage. One of the ways, and I talked about this even when I taught secular community college, the whole idea of women going into the workforce. In the 1990s, there was a study that showed that a wage stagnation, this is when Clinton was running for re-election, and the billions and billions and billions of dollars that was being spent on juvenile crime. And I told my community college students, I said that wage stagnation has come from the fact that we now have two-parent working households, because in the last 50 years, we have added tens of millions of people into the workplace. You increase the supply, right? And of course, then what happens? The price of the commodity goes down, right? So wages have gone down, and then there's nobody home managing the household, right? So you have these kids coming home from school. There's no parents. They're out there wreaking havoc. That explains the juvenile crime. And this is really, I think, and there's been books written about this, was one of the goals of feminism. All right, to break up the family household by getting both parents out of the household into the workplace, and that creates chaos, right? There's no more family meal at 5 o'clock every day. There's no more family prayer at night. There's no more going to mass or church together on Sunday, because half of them are working on Sunday. And so you're absolutely right. Now, to put this genie back in the bottle, right? I think we may be way beyond that. But I'd like to, for my part, see the church talk more about that, right? Talk more about traditional marriage, traditional family, and exactly what you're talking about, how dads need to be the head of the household, spiritual heads of the household, and the moms need to be lifted up and honored as the ones who have the children entrusted to them day in and day out to mold them, to educate them. Catholic Church says the primary educator of children is who? The family. It's not true today, right? It's the public school system, it's the media, it's social media. And so, but this is, as I just laid out, a very many layered onion, and I don't know how to put the genie back in the bottle, but it starts with the Catholic Church, Christianity, talking about the importance of a traditional marriage and family. And that's why St. Joseph, I believe, is becoming more prevalent every day. He keeps popping up, consecration to St. Joseph, because, of course, he is the model for the traditional family, the Holy Family.
Father, go, Joe, please.
I just want to mention, Father, but that's a good thing to because we seem like, I feel, and I think a lot of people that we talk to feel overwhelmed by the idea of having, well, how do we put that genie back in the bottle? But I do think that clearly there are things that we could do in the culture, and I think there's certain government action that could take place, which could at least start to begin putting the genie back. I think education, breaking up the monopoly of the public education establishment is an important one. I think securing the border so that the corporations are not allowed to exploit cheap labor, because that's what it is. It is the exploitation of cheap labor coming over from south of the border. Securing the border, promoting, and through the tax code, families, so that women who don't want to be in the workforce come out of the workforce. What will these things do? It'll force wages upwards, so that the man can go out and earn enough living to raise his, earn enough money to raise his family. Okay, the women, like you said, can be now in the home forming the child. You're not handing them off to the public school. There are, my point in bringing it up, Father, there are ways, there are steps that we could take both in the culture and politically. We just have to have the will to do it. But I would agree with you. The hierarchy of the Catholic Church has to have our back, and loudly.
It's funny. Many people are listening to this and they think we're Archie Bunker, all three of us. Like, sadly, that role of a woman, a mother, and you said something interesting, Father, that I took very, keen note of, to raise a woman up. You see, society looks at it just the opposite. A woman that has numerous children, that is a mother, that loves her role as a mother, sadly is looked down upon. And you used another phrase, that genie is out of the bottle. The longer I've been involved in this basically dialogue with Joe Pasillo, we've been at it for 2 years. I'm coming to this realization, sadly. I'm a little slow. It takes me time, but I'm getting it. And what I'm getting is this: there is no man that could fix this. There is no voice that could fix this. I am slowly figuring this out, that we are in a battle against powers and principalities. I know the church has always said this. I know you know this, Father, as well. I'm slow, and I'm learning this through banging my head against the wall, because I'm trying to fight this battle on a horizontal plane, and I'm not getting anywhere. You see, I think we have to basically pray. We have to pray up ourselves, meaning this is beyond us. There's no person that can fix this. There's no president that could fix this. I'm interested in your comments on that, because I know you know that. Again, as a man, I feel like I have to do something and I'm meeting it full on. But what I'm seeing is I'm not equipped for it at all. I cannot move the lever. I can't change hearts. I can't change minds. Only God can. I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, look, there's a lot there. First of all, to the other Joe. Yeah, we can talk about all those political jobs, right? St. Paul says, you don't work, you don't eat, right? My father, all right, told me, you're going to work. He taught me work ethic. Jobs, right? So that's first. And that is really, been the mindset of Trump since he got into office. Jobs. Put everybody to work. You remember when Clinton went on his big kick about changing the culture, and we're going to change the inner city, and he came up with the midnight basketball program, right? Yeah. I remember somebody say, midnight basketball, how are they going to get up for work the next day? Right? And I said, it's genius, exactly right? It's about jobs. Provide jobs. That's what and I'm telling you, there are many, many well-intended, and I meet them all the time, right? I see the homeless on the highway entrances and exits, and they want a job, please just give me a job. They want work. People, they want to work. What does the Catholic Church say? Not only you don't work, you don't eat. Man was made for work, right? We were made to work, and it's inclined. Now, when I was doing these in secular colleges, these teaching moments, I always used to say that, well, the member of the working household, the mother or father, whichever one was working less or was making less, should stay home and raise the children, but somebody needs to stay home and manage the household, right? And Joe, you hit on something very important. Back in the old days when this started falling apart, oh, I'm a housewife, right? We degraded the whole stay-at-home mom instead of elevating that position to what it was. I mean, think about the husband brings home the money, but who manages the money?
Mama.
Who manages the household? The family, the household is like a business. It's like a small business. And the husband's really just the salesman who goes out and brings in the revenue. And then the mother not only has to manage the business, but raise the employees, right? I mean, raise the children. She has to multitask. He's only got one job. He's only got 10 jobs. I mean, and we should have elevated that. I was always in awe of my mother. I mean, in awe of her, right? Because she had to do so many things. So yes, that's key. Now I forget what your point was, Joe. What did you want?
No, I was basically talking about that it's bigger than any one person.
Okay. So that's why the Catholic Church has to be the voice, right? We've always been the defenders of traditional marriage and traditional family, but now I think really since JP2, St. John Paul II, has passed away. I mean, Benedict was a place marker for a while, but he wasn't really the charismatic pope that we needed. We are not standing up and defending the traditional marriage, traditional family, and standing up for life. I cannot believe that even in this COVID-19 crisis, knowing what we all know, and we can debate a lot of things, but it's been in the liberal media and it's been everywhere. The overwhelming majority of deaths in this COVID-19 were medically vulnerable people, and it's clear now that many of them were what? Misdiagnosed, mistreated, right? And then many of them were put in jeopardy by people like Cuomo and other governors placing sick people into nursing homes where the medically vulnerable existed. Yet you don't have one Catholic bishop standing up and saying, wait a minute, this is tantamount to euthanasia. We have just mass murdered the medically vulnerable. All life is unique, precious, and unrepeatable from the beginning of life until the end of life. We should be respecting these people, right? We are living on the shoulders of these people. We should be honoring them. You don't hear any conversations like that. You don't hear any proclamations from our shepherds. Our shepherds are silent. They're dormant. The church is, I asked a bunch of people. I had 2 masses this morning, 2 house masses, and I asked both groups of people, tell me one thing right now. We just understand the church in the United States. Forget about the worldwide church, just the church in the United States. Tell me one thing right now that the church, the Catholic Church in the United States is doing well, that we can look and say, wow, I am really proud of my church. Name one thing. I'll give you a half hour. You can't come up with anything. It's scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal. And I have to put it at the feet of our shepherds, our bishops. So if I have any bishops that are watching this or are going to watch this, we need you. We need you. Get into the fight. Get into the fray. Start proclaiming the sanctity of life. Start telling our nation to stop killing our preborn, to stop killing our elderly. Stand up for the sanctity of marriage. Start talking about mortal sin. Start talking about the risk of eternal salvation. You're talking about us, protecting us from getting sick. How about protecting us from dying and spending eternity in hell? Proclaim the truth, protect family, protect marriage, talk about the salvation of souls. Give us the hope that we need for all eternity. We need you. All right, so that's my message to the bishop. The church needs to wake up from its slumber. Our shepherds need to wake up from their slumber. I could lay it at the foot of the priest, but there are too many priests right now that are overwhelmed themselves, and be quite honest with you, they're fearful if they stand up and preach the truth, they're going to be put on the sidelines by their bishop, and that should never exist. That type of fear should never exist in the Catholic Church. Our shepherds should be our fathers who are embracing the truth and embracing us who want to stand up for the truth.
You're so right, Father. And there's one thing I'll say very briefly, and we've got about maybe 8 or 9 minutes left, but I will say, in Mass today, I was with my wife. She said to me, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" And I'm looking around at the signs that say, "Sit here, wear mask, gloves." And the only thing that was going through my head was not so much the health restrictions, health and safety standards. It's like Joe and I say all the time, we're not the bravest men in the world. We're just not, okay? So, but we do have grace. We stay close to confession and the Eucharist. We pray the rosary every day. I can fight this culture war. I could die in this spiritual battle, and I wouldn't care. I mean that sincerely, okay? But it disheartens me and it depresses me that right now, as a group, not I'm saying pointing out individuals, but as a group, the USCCB has really let us down. We cannot rely on them, and it's very demoralizing. It really, really is. I'm not going to lie to you.
I want to encourage your viewers to go to the Catholic Catechism, and under the 5th commandment, I would like them to read the 4 chapters. It's only about a page, one side of a page. 4 chapters, 2284 to 2287, on scandal. And scandal is a grave sin. It's the scandal. Scandal is leading other people to sin either by commission or omission, intentional or unintentional, directly or indirectly. And as you read those 4 chapters, think about how many scandals are involved in today's Catholic Church, just by the silence, the church being dormant. We need our shepherds to be vocal. We need our shepherds to stand up and proclaim the truth. We have a tradition in our Catholic faith of martyrdom, I just had somebody recently send me a video of a church that was reopening in New York, and the rector of that cathedral did a 13-minute video. And in that 13-minute video was on the new protocol for coming into church, receiving communion, and leaving church. 13 minutes for protocol on coming into the church, receiving communion, and leaving the church, right? I'm like, I don't even think I want to listen to this. But the first thing out of his mouth was that what's of utmost importance to us, and those were exact words, what is of utmost importance to us is your health. And I said, I'm sorry, Monsignor, but what should be the utmost importance to you is our eternal salvation. That's it. We have one job to get to heaven and bring as many people with us as possible. And Joe, you brought up state of grace. Read the second reading today, St. Paul, Romans, when he talks about flesh and spirit. Here's what he's talking about. He was talking about, and you can go replace flesh and spirit with these words, all right? State of grace, mortal sin. State of grace, state of mortal sin, right? And the bottom line is we never hear the church talk about mortal sin anymore. We never hear the church say that one unrepentant mortal sin could cost you your salvation. But what's worse is there are people within the Catholic faith that are persisting in mortal sin, that are not seeking Christ's mercy, all right, are denying the fact that they are in mortal sin, and they're persisting in mortal sin, and that is absolutely should be scary to anyone who says they love them. All right, for us to say we love somebody and allowing them to persist in mortal sin to the risk of their eternal salvation and not sit down with them and tell them, I love you and I'm scared. And please think about this. And I will tell your viewers out here, I asked you guys if this was a Catholic, this is about as Catholic as it's going to get. My Catholic friends out there, if you can get somebody who's away from the church, away from the faith, and is involved in persistent mortal sin, you can get them to pray with you. If you can say, hey, will you pray a prayer with me right now? Our Christian brothers and sisters always say, will you pray with me now? Yes, pray with me now. Okay. All right. This is the prayer. You hold their hand, you look them in the eye, and this is the prayer. Oh my God, I am heartily sorry for having offended thee, and I detest all my sins because of thy just punishment, but most of all because they offend thee, my God, who art all good and deserving of all my love. I firmly resolve with the help of thy grace to sin no more and to avoid the near occasion of sin. And then you ask them, please think about that. We miss you. Jesus miss you. The Father misses you. And come back to the light, right? And they'll be stunned, all right? And they may say, you're crazy, but I'll tell you what, you'll plant the seed in them about Christ's mercy that they won't be able to escape.
Joe, well, how much time? Because I have one more question I want to throw at
It's got to be a quick one. We only have 2 minutes.
Okay, Father, Biden recently came out with this statement. I support abortion under any circumstance. Again, something a lot of the Democrats choose to look the other way on, that they support abortion up and through the moment of birth. 9 months.
What's abortion? All right, so Joe Biden says, I support terrorism. The location doesn't matter. The location is of no consequence. Joe Biden supports terrorism, right? Are you going to vote for any right-thinking person going to vote for somebody who comes out and says, I support terrorism?
Nope.
Look, at the Catholic Church's teaching is clear that if you have a choice between two candidates and one is pro-life, and that means in regards to abortion, that's the preeminent issue, and one is pro-abortion, you don't look at any other issues. You don't look at any other issues. This is another heresy that has been infiltrated into the church in the last 25 years. One issue, first issue, abortion. If you can make the choice, you make the choice. There's never been a vague choice in my adulthood. There's always been a clear choice. If you can't make the choice based on that one issue, then you go to issue number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, right? No Catholic can vote for Joe Biden without committing the sin of scandal. Read Scandal. If you vote for Joe Biden, who is committing scandal day in and day out, the bishops are being scandalous by not calling him out on his persistent mortal sin, and we cannot vote for Joe Biden without committing the grave sin of scandal.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there, Father, and we thank you for that. So we're going to take a break right now. You're listening to The Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. We're on the Crusade channel, always on air, always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Our call-in telephone number is 844-527-8723. And our live chat room, the only social media out there worth actually socializing in, is online at crusadechannel.com/chat. Father Imbarrato, thank you for coming by. Obviously, we'll have you back over the next couple of weeks, and we'll mix it up a little bit more in this culture war because it's smack right in front of our face. So follow Joe and I on Facebook and YouTube. Like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. And Joe and I will see you on the other side of the break.